Hey, I'm Matt Groll, Vista Homes. Thanks for joining us. Last week we talked about rough HVAC in a home. This week we're going to talk about rough electrical. Now that we have the plumbing and HVAC in a home, they're less pliable as far as moving, and because they're rigid lines and so forth. Electrical is a little bit more bendable. We can move around things a little bit easier. So that's typically the last thing we do before insulating. So as you look at your home, as during the construction process, you'll see a little metal post with a meter on it. That's what we call our temp meter. Because the house is not yet constructed, we have to bring power close to the home to service for our subcontractors. So that's what we call a temp meter service. So that power will be taken there, and then extension cords to build the home. Once the home gets to a certain point, we can transfer that service to a meter on the home, and that's something we'll take care of for you. So that meter is outside your home, temporary meter on the side of your home. So as we move into your home, there's a lot of different services you can have. You can have a 200 amp service, which is traditional. I'd say 85% of the homes we build have an 20 amps, 200 amp service for a home. If you have more demand, you can be up to a 400 amp if you're going to have welders and electric vehicle chargers, etc. And if you have a very large home, you can be up to 600 amp. And as you can appreciate, the more amperage you get, the more costly it's, the bigger wire, bigger transformers, etc., etc. So those are some things to consider. But like I say, 200 amp does most of the homes that we build. The panel will be in your home in a specific location. There's a lot of requirements about where the panel can go from a safety perspective, and so your electricians are going to make sure that's in the appropriate place. Be thinking about this, whereas if you have like an unfinished basement, you want to make sure that as you do your electrical walkthrough with your electrician, that if you want to finish your basement later, make sure that you have a sub panel in the basement or the panel downstairs so you can easily access things to add circuits. So as we go through this process after the HVAC is done, you're actually going to do an electrical walkthrough with your electrician. He will be there with you and the project manager to walk through the electric plan that is on the plans that you have. So up to that point, you may be thinking about what you want in your home, and they'll walk through fixture by fixture, outlet by outlet, switch by switch, and go through the entire home. So that's what we base the quote on. That's what we base the plan on. So if you want any changes, that is the time to state them. So ask about the changes. Make sure you understand the cost ramifications of those changes, because they all affect the price. And so you want to make sure you understand that. So outlets are scattered throughout the house. So we have to have, typically they're 16 inches above the floor or 4 to 4 inches above the floor for switches. Outlets have to be every 6 feet. So every 6 feet of any point, you have to be able to plug something in to a wall. Some people complain there's too many outlets, but the basic plan just distributes them per code. So you can add more if you want, or put some higher for TVs or whatever you want. So those are things you should be thinking about. A lot of different kind of outlets. You have your basic outlet, you have your childproof outlet, so it's harder to plug things in or for kids to get shocked. You have GFCIs, ground fault interrupters. They're used in wet areas inside the home. You have water resistant outlets that are used on the outside of your home that could be in a moist environment. So a lot of options. In my home, we have some that are Bluetooth controlled, so I can control an outlet with my phone for, like, let's say, Christmas lights outside. I can control from my phone, and that makes it really handy and slick. A lot of options there. Again, be thinking about these things before you do electric walkthrough. Switches in your home, you can have the pole style that has a little knob, or you have the paddle style that has the paddle. Paddles cost a little bit more, but we see those in most homes now, tend to be the more utilized type. You have 2-way, 3-way, or 4-way switch circuits. 2 ways where you just simply have one switch and one light system. 3-way is 2 switches where you can switch on 2 sides of a room to control one set of lights. Or a 4-way switch is 3 switches and 1 set of lights, or 3 or more, I should say. You can have 3 or more switches. Typically see those in like great rooms or something where you have multiple places to come into a room that you want to control the lights. More complicated, obviously, more cost, but definitely a requirement to make sure you can turn on the lights safely from any point of the home. A lot of cool technology out there for Bluetooth, Wi-Fi enabled switches and outlets. For example, in my home, I made the effort to go through and swap out all my switches after I moved in, so that I can turn on and off any light in my home by my phone wherever I'm at in the world. So it's pretty cool. Kids leave lights on, I can turn them off before I go to bed. Pretty slick. A lot of cool tech out there you can do after the fact, or have your electricians help you with that as well. Low voltage, we're going to low voltage service. If you want under cabinet lighting or accent lighting in certain accent walls or areas, So that's something we need to know as well as when we're planning your electrical walkthrough. As well as be thinking when you're doing your electrical walkthrough, what kind of light fixture you want. If you have big fans or some of these, a big chandelier, obviously we need to make sure that gang box is gonna be able to hold that fixture up. So be thinking about what type of fixtures you want through your home. A lot of conversation about disc lights versus can lights. So a little history there. Back in the day, they had these cans, these metal cans. You had the big bulb you screwed in, had a metal trim on it. Very costly to install this, the bulb, the trim. Very inefficient, you might say. And as technology has grown, now we simply just have the round gang box with a little disc puck that we can put on there. Don't have the 3D look per se of a can light, but they're getting better and they're getting more aesthetically pleasing, but they are fantastic. For example, if you look in this office space right now, these are all puck lights. And when you look at them, they sure have the look of disc lights, or sorry, can lights, and they do great. So very cost effective and they work fantastic. A lot of LED service. So nowadays you're getting a lot of LED lights. They say they work for 20,000 years or whatever they say, but we always see them fail. Just the way things work, right? Some things fail sometimes. So just be aware that if you put an LED light in, yes, they may last a long time, and yes, they may fail as well if something were to happen. So just be aware that they tend to be a little bit more sensitive to voltage irregulation. So let's say sometimes for whatever reason, if the circuit has some fluctuation in it, it can cause LED lights to crash a little bit easier if you have a switch bad or a bad loose connection. So nothing you should have to worry about, but they're a little more susceptible to issues like that. So a lot of you in the house, for outlets, you'll have a 15 amp services or 20 amp services. 15 amps are typically your 14 gauge wire. That's going to service lights, bedrooms, stuff like that. 20 amps are for bathrooms, kitchens, wet areas, some of those things. That's the 12 gauge wire. So that will all be decided by code and by your electrician. Doesn't impact you at all, but that's something. So if you go through your house and you see some white wire and some yellow wire, totally fine. They've got it figured out. There's also be higher amperage lines, 30 amp for dryers, 40 amps for ranges, 50 amps for welders, electric vehicles, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that goes into wiring a home. The electricians we use are awesome. We've hardly ever had any problems with the homes we built with the electricians. So it's definitely a quality service you're going to get. So that kind of wraps up our electrical plan. So thanks for joining us today, and feel free to subscribe, like us, and ping us if you have any questions. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye.